Let's look at something called truthy and falsy values. So true and false, these things we have seen, right? True and true, what is true? And true is a full boolean value, false is a boolean value. There is something called truthy and falsy values. What are these values? Actually, what happens is that in some places, boolean values are expected, but you are not having boolean value at that place. Then JavaScript tries to somehow tries to convert that non-boolean value into boolean value. So any non-boolean value it will take and will try to convert that into boolean value, provided the context. Provided the context. So in boolean context. So any value which is converted to true in boolean context, that is called truthy, and any value which is evaluated to false in boolean context, that is called falsy values. Now what are these values? First of all, which are truthy, which are falsy? Secondly, what is this boolean context? That we will see next. So one of the context is very simple to figure out, is that logical operator. So when I say 5 is less than 10, okay, then in then that will evaluate to true, right? But what if that thing, the value which we are trying to operate on is not boolean? Okay, so let's see. So if I do something like let's say 2 less than 5 and false. Okay, so I know that logical operator should have both sides boolean values. It should have, right? So here 2 less than 5 is true, so this is also a boolean value. Right side is also a boolean value. But what if I write something like here hello? What do you think? What will JavaScript try to do? So what will happen actually is JavaScript will try to convert this value, which is not a boolean value, into a boolean value, just for the identification that it should be true or false. What will be the exact printed value, that I will discuss later, you understand? But for identifying that, okay, I need and I need to execute and or. Okay, so what should be the value, whether I should treat this as true or false? That for that it sees that when we are trying to evaluate that, then we should put into two buckets, which are like truthy, which will be treated as true, and falsy, which will be treated as false. So here you see that, okay, I said that, okay, everything in and should be true, then it evaluates to true. I don't know what this thing is going to be evaluated to. So firstly, simply print this whole thing, and when we print this whole thing, we see that it is true. Now, which means that this thing is true, obvious, right? But this thing also must have been treated as true, and this thing also must have been treated as true. That's why the full answer is true, because I know that for logical and everything must be true, which gives us a hint that 5 is treated like true, which means that 5 is truthy. Hello is treated like true, and that's why hello is truthy. You understand? So that's what the context I'm trying to give, that what sort of values are being treated as true. These sort of values are being treated as true. Now you see here. First of all, 0 or false and world. Okay. First of all, let's see that it is or and. There are two values, or and, two values. What will be evaluated first? We saw that the precedence of and is higher, which means that firstly this will be evaluated. So this thing will be, this whole thing, false and world, this will be treated as false or true. Tell me. This will be treated as false. Why? Because we know that even though in earlier cases we saw that hello was treated as true, but then even if you treat this world and in a similar manner, let's say hello, instead of hello we have another thing, world. So non-empty string, here also some string is there, right? Now even if you treat this thing as true, for and to be true, the whole thing has to be, both sides have to be true. But even if this is truthy, but then this side is false. So this whole expression false and this cannot be truthy. So here it will be true. Sorry, here it will be false, because both have to be true in order to be this true. But even one of the AND arguments is false, then it will be false. So here one of the AND arguments here is clearly false, and that's why this whole thing will be false, which means that this whole thing is going to be treated as false, right? False. Now the idea is that what is or? What is or? Or gives us true when everything is gives us false when everything is false. Even one of them is true, then it gives true. Now here if you print this value, you are getting false, which means that okay, I know that this right side is sort of false. I know that because I did the analysis right now. There is the right side is sort of false, but the whole answer is also false, which means that definitely this side must also have been treated like false, because otherwise if this side would have been treated like true, then the answer would not have been false, because for false you need both sides falsy, you understand, for because it is or. Even one side is truthy, then it will not come out to be false. So this gives us a hint, that 0 is treated like falsy, which means that it is not false, but 0 is treated like falsy. Okay, so now we have seen three examples, that okay, 0 is treated as falsy, 5 is treated as truthy, and this hello was treated as truthy, world was treated as truthy. Okay, so now we are getting into some shape, that okay, what type of values are considered as truthy and what type of values are considered falsy. We are now getting in some shape, right? Exact answer is this, that these are the 6 or 7 values which are treated as falsy. Okay, so you see that 5 okay, no, don't bother about 5. Let's see 0 is in this list, right? 0 is treated as falsy because these are the 7 values: empty string, null, undefined, false, 0, and nan. I will come to later. Nan is actually and let's say it's a good time to discuss nan. So nan means not a number, which means that if you do something which was not expected, okay, then it actually tries to it tries to if it cannot create a number out of it, right, then it will say that okay, I don't know, this is not a number. So let me give you an example. So let's say you try to add, let's say 1 plus 2, then obviously it will be 3, right? But what if you write an let's say invalid value, let's say undefined plus 2, then you see that it is showing not a number. Okay, so if you add undefined to true, so you understand that it can be by mistake. So let's say you have a variable, let a is equal to 5. Let's say let a, and a is equal to 5, something like this. Then obviously 5 plus 2, 7, right? By mistake, let's say this is inside some logic, some if statement or something, and by mistake, let's say this could not run. Then what will happen? A remained undefined, and then undefined plus 2 is not a number. So JavaScript does not like to throw errors. JavaScript would like to throw as much less errors as possible. So in many cases, it tries to create a value, and then if that value is invalid or something, that then you figure it out, that is fine. But nan, okay, now what do you think is the type of this nan? You understand? So this what if I do something like type of nan, this thing is evaluating to nan, we understood, right? If we see type of nan, then we will see that it is number. So just remember that nan is also a number data type. It's just that its value is nan, its value is not a number, but its type is still a number. So weird, but you have to understand it like that, that a valid number cannot be assigned, but still its type is number. Okay, okay. While I'm here, just let me tell you one more thing. So if I have undefined plus let's say 5, then it gave us not a number. But if I do null plus 5, then it gives us 5. So actually, and there are many such small weird things which slowly you will come to know. But the point is that one by one we will see. And these weird things you don't need to remember. It's just that if you see at some place, then so in this case, in case of addition, the undefined is treated as like undefined cannot be added, and that's why it is NaN is showing. But if null is there, then null is treated as 0. Null is treated as 0, and that's why answer is 5. And just now, before, in I think in some previous video, I told that false is also treated as 0, and that's why you see the answer is 5. And what about true? True is treated as 1, and that's why the answer is 6. So slowly we'll get acquainted with these things, but the main point is that if you are doing some weird sort of operation, and JavaScript cannot understand that what are you trying to do, 5 plus 2, then in all those edge cases, mostly JavaScript will have some fallback option where either it will try to convert this to this, or other way around. So for example, let's say I do hello plus 5, then here other way around is happening. Here JavaScript will see that, okay, I cannot convert hello to number, so let's convert 5 to string. And then this plus, rather than it is addition, it is being treated as concatenation. I told you, right? So if you have hello and then world, then obviously it can concatenate. But if you have hello plus, let's say, some number, then what is happening is that it cannot convert hello to number, but it don't, JavaScript, I told you, does not want to give error as much as possible. So it tries to create a string out of 56 and then concatenates it. So you see that the answer is hello 56. Okay, so that is what is happening. It converts 56 into string and then concatenates it. So that is how it proceeds. Anyways, the idea was that we were discussing falsy values. These are the values: not a number, empty string, null undefined, false, and 0. These are the only values which are considered falsy. Now what are truthy? Every other value is valid value in JavaScript will be considered truthy. So in fact the definition of truthy is only something like this, that any value which is not false is truthy. So you don't need to remember what are truthy. So why 5 is truthy? Because 5 is not in this list, and that's why 5 is truthy. 0 is there, and no other, like not a number is also a number, but apart from 0 and NaN, there is no number type, and that's why all the positive numbers. What are negative numbers? Are negative numbers truthy or falsy? Minus 5, is minus 5 truthy or falsy? Minus 5 is truthy. Why? Because anything which is not in this list is truthy. Again, why we said that, and why 0 was falsy? Because 0 is definitely given in this list, that's why it's falsy. Hello and world, why hello and world both were behaving as true? Why it was why it was truthy? Because it is not in this list. In this list, the only string is empty string. So empty string acts as falsy. Apart from that, all strings act as truthy, and that's why hello and world were acting as truthy. So now you understand what is truthy, what is falsy, and in Boolean context when they come, then how to evaluate them. Okay, and we'll see this sort of expressions more in the next set of videos, where this sort of expressions where all the arguments are not Boolean. Somewhere it might be number, a string, or something. So these two examples were crafted specifically so that you don't get confused. The answer was true and false, but the whole answer of an expression with logical operators where all the arguments are not Boolean values, the whole expression's answer might not be Boolean. That we'll see in the next video.